Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. We're keeping our focus on what to do to improve election security such that that will enhance the process. You know, we consistently talk about credibility and integrity of the process, and these are components to ensure that that happens. So just wondering if you could conclude your thoughts on why isn't it possible for us to prosecute, go for those below before you get the top notch?
Yes, because, for example, now I'm not saying that to denigrate the institutions that are tailored for investigation, and they are specialists in that regard, because to be honest with you, we have improved immensely in terms of investigation in the country. When you see EFCC prosecuting a matter and you see the prestige of evidence and you try to compare that with the past, you will see that they've upped their game. The next stage is prosecution, because you also have to have people who are specialized in prosecution. And in Nigeria, you just brief any lawyer you see. There are lawyers that are traditionally tailored for defense. If you're bringing him to prosecute, it's another thing. But now, when it comes to investigating, and take a case study of the Senate President, for example, Code of Conduct Tribunal, assuming that the law enforcement agency, a particular agency of the government is investigating him, it will have nothing to do with his position as a senator, because all of the crimes alleged were crimes purportedly to have been committed in Kwara State. So then that means the law enforcement agency are supposed to spring to action in Kwara, looking at government accounts, looking at financial officers in government, looking at even the bankers, because that's what we don't see. We always prosecute the people. We don't see the people who are accessory to that. Look at lawyers also who help in siphoning some of this money. So it involves a lot. Now, if the target is the man, and because our criminal justice system, to be honest, is so bad that when you bring a case in court, it will take forever to prosecute. I know of a case that started in 2008. Even right now, they are on trial. When are you going to get justice? Manafort in the US, they just started his trial a few days ago. They've concluded he has been convicted. So that's in a society where the criminal justice system is working. You can go by this by the strategy you mentioned, which is to start with the people from the bottom and then come to him, because ultimately you are still within time to be able to achieve that. If you're going to apply that in Nigeria, if the target is the Senate President, and you want to start with that financial officer or that driver or whoever it is in the government, before you get through with that, I'm sure he would have finished his term and has gone.
I'm just wondering, speaking about the EFCC, and they had this meeting with INEC some time ago, how they wanted, INEC wanted them to partner with them such that they could see how they can clamp down on those who perhaps abuse election financing and crimes associated with that. Well, how do you possibly think, or what kind of results do you think they can achieve? And it will have an impact on ensuring that politicians fall in line.
No doubt if they partner, we will to an extent achieve a result by ensuring that corrupt public officers do not come to positions of power. Now, I have suggested to EFCC, and I've suggested to the highest authority there, that if you want to get rid of corrupt public officers in government, one way by which you can achieve is that we have a guideline. This Electoral Act amendment that is sitting on the table of the president, assuming it is assented to, they will come up under the guidelines now in the proposed amendment. The guideline of INEC will have the force of law as if it were the Electoral Act. Back in 2015, the problem we had throughout the election tribunals is anytime somebody violates the provisions of the guideline, it is challenged in court as that the guideline is not as effective as the Electoral Act, because the Electoral Act has force of law, guideline is just a mere guideline. Now, with this development, assuming the president assent to it, and now it's a law, INEC will then issue a new guideline. And what is the guideline? Any aspirant for any political post in Nigeria will fill a form. When you go to collect expression of form or nomination, you will fill a form. And the form will be like an affidavit stating, 1, your expected source of income, 2, your finances, 3, your actual source of income. So all that Daniel Bwala is expected to raise for the purpose of his senatorial bid will be in a document. So if I have a pack, a block, I will write them. If I have individuals, I will write. If I say Nigerians, I will write.
What about the ones you don't know about?
Good. No, because you see, they will pay into your account. How will you know them?
No, I mean, if people come in, and we hear them say it all the time, that look, these are supporters who perhaps, I mean, you get supporters every day. You run over fans who you don't even know. Yeah. So how do they capture that kind of group?
It's very easy. I'm driving at that point, Chamberlain. That's why I say expected. So assuming expected, you say, I don't know. Let's assume you are that criminally minded that you say, I don't know. What you have done is that you have submitted like your statement in oath. EFCC behind the corner or behind the curtain will now investigate your financials, the actual ones. Now, the expected ones, they may not be in view at the moment, right? But the thing is, at the end of the day, if you emerge as a senator, and then your investigation comes to fore, the EFCC, of course, they are empowered by law to get financial transactions in your favor by the bank. They will now see whoever it is that eventually sponsored you, who at the time you were filling the form, you didn't know he existed or that he was going to support, but eventually he did. They will become subject of investigation. If the monies are your monies that go by proxy, it will become subject of investigation. If it is a corrupt public officer that is funding you, it will become subject of investigation. That way, nobody who is a corrupt public officer will come out to say, I want to sponsor somebody, because by merely saying that, you are now going to be investigated. And you too, if you respect the person, you don't want them to be in trouble, you will not agree that they sponsor you. It will limit financing to a point where we will now comply with the provisions of the Electoral Act regarding the limitations of finances by political party. It will also give effect to the not too young to run, because not too young to run is a facade, it's a scam. And the lawmakers knew that they can just pass it to law as a talking point, and we will all celebrate, but we have not given the required teeth to make it happen. How does the person emerge in the political party? With little or no money, how can he succeed in Nigeria? But with these guidelines of INEC, we will achieve immensely. We will do the first step, stop corrupt public officers from finally getting to public office. Now in Nigeria, to be honest with you, when you studied social media, if you go through social media, when you see two people vying for political posts, one has smart ideas, the other one has money, whether obtained by corrupt means, you will discover that our mentality in Nigeria has been so damaged that you that have the smart ideas will not be considered as worthy enough to come to the table for conversation because you do not have the money to speak for you. As a politician, I started my grassroots, visits and then talking to my people about my intention. I will tell you, I experienced that firsthand. When you go down and talk to the people, the language they understand is money. You can tell them we will bring the heavens down. They will say, excellent. When you finish...
Will these guidelines address this kind of scenario?
Yes, it will. Because if I come under pressure to meet the demands of the locals, and I now go to meet individuals that are begging to fund me in this election, remember, anybody who gives me money through financial online transaction, he is identifiable. Secondly, remember, I fill the form. Even if the person gives me cash, at the end of the day, if INEC determines that 200 million is the limit within which is the limit of a senatorial expenses for election, and they see that I spent more than 200 million, I will have to explain.
No, please go ahead.
I'm just wondering, the historians say, what a man can do by what is done before. So if you look at some of the challenges we're currently facing, take for instance the forms that you're supposed to fill, asset declaration forms, right, with respect to the FOI. We know how difficult it is when you ask and seek those, perhaps in the spirit of transparency, because if that guideline says you must make those information known to the commission, how do you then ensure that the public can access those to check, to ensure that really and truly this is the case and not somebody trying to manipulate that?
But the law is clear. If I apply, assuming you are INEC and I make an application under FOI and I ask you to furnish me with information regarding Ajuli, and then for whatever reason, because he has influence over you or people in your agency, and thereby they are frustrating my application, the law is clear. I'll go to the court, seek an order.
No, but shouldn't that also be part of those guidelines that upon request by you must make it available, not just to the commission, so it makes it easier in the same breath?
Then not just you must, I agree with that, you must, but then they will also bring it as a punishment in case you fail to do. Just like executive order. Yeah. Recently the president signed Executive Order 6. That order does not have force of law, can never be applied in the court of law, because that order is inconsistent with the extant law regarding agencies, their operations, and their punishment.